Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome to Homunculus Gaming, and today we'll be looking at the Misery mod version 1.0 for STALKER Call of Pripyat. But before we plunge into this video, I'd like to clarify that Misery is just a mod. It still requires the core STALKER C.O.P game files. It is not a standalone release. If you stumbled upon this video and have no idea what STALKER C.O.P is and would like to check out that first, click the radiation symbol at any time during this video in the upper right hand corner, right there. But fret not, at the end of that video, looking at STALKER C.O.P, there'll be a link taking you back to this video. So cleverly laid out for you all. Alright, so let's get started. One of the first things you're going to notice about Misery mod is the class system. When you first install the mod and it modifies your game files, you're going to choose which game you want to install based on the class. This is a little bit of a bummer. Not that there are classes, but how it's used. It's probably a limitation of the engine and not the modder's fault or anything they could have done about it, but it's still a little bit of a bummer that you can't just switch between classes at your own whim in-game. But it's still nice that there was a little bit of character customization added in there, that not every single playthrough feels like the same person. There are currently only 3 classes: Sniper, Recon, and Assaulter. Each class starts out with their own individualized weapons and armors. They even have their own specializations that make them more proficient at some weapons. For instance, the Sniper has less sway when using sniper rifles aimed down the scope, and then other classes have shotguns and assault rifles that degrade slower or have less recoil. They even went as far to change the sprinting speed and maximum carrying weight of each class. You're still able to use the other weapons. For instance, if you're a sniper and want to have a shotgun as a secondary, like myself, love those shotguns, you're more than welcome to do so, and you still can use the weapons fine, but they'll degrade faster, so you'll pay a pretty penny for using that weapon of your choice outside of the class, and they won't be as efficient. They'll have more recoil and more sway aimed down sight. It's nice that there is a little bit of leniency in the class system. For instance, if you were running around as an assaulter, but then you found a really cool, powerful sniper rifle and just wanted to pick off some people at range for a little while, you can do that. But at the same time, it would have been nice if there were a little bit more persuasive mechanics, making you stick to the exact weapons that you're supposed to use. Sometimes it's entirely possible to get wrapped up in another shiny weapon you picked up and forget the class you are and just start using whatever weapons you want to instead of the weapons you're supposed to. I personally think it's very annoying when you're completely locked out of a type of weapon when you're playing through a game, but at the same time, it's always nice in a game when they're constantly reminding you through mechanics of what class you're playing. It makes switching to another one very refreshing and a new experience. For instance, if they added sub-specifications, like a sniper that can also use shotguns or assault rifles, or maybe a assaulter that specializes in medium and sometimes a little bit of long-range combat, not completely locked into the roles. Another way they could have done this is just increase the positive aspects of using weapons you're supposed to and increase the negative aspects of weapons you're not supposed to. Less accurate, degrade at a faster rate, and vice versa. It was very creative and actually works within the game pretty well to use a class system, but I just feel like it could use a little bit more tweaking to play into the immersion aspect of the game and making each playthrough feel unique and differentiated from your other ones. Once you actually have the game installed, the second thing you'll probably notice is the graphics. On maximum settings, it's actually pretty good looking, and it's a heck of an upgrade from the original game. The sheer amount of things that have been redone is actually pretty staggering. Newly added high-resolution textures are very noticeable and add to the immersion factor drastically. One thing that's particularly noticeable is how much weather has been changed. Ordinarily, in the normal game, it's pretty murky and not really interesting, nothing that really catches your eye. But in the mod, they're very, very well done. Lightning in the distance is crazy and really adds to the spookiness of walking around in the middle of the night all alone. Even in the mod, it's usually pretty murky and dark and depressing, but when the sky does open up and you get a clear day and there's no fog, the maximum vision distance has been cranked up to a very high degree. It's extremely rare, but if you actually do have the fortune of finding yourself on a high hill on a clear day during the sunrise, you'll be treated to quite the show, and something that'll definitely make you stop for a moment and take it into consideration. Unfortunately, and this might be the engine's fault, but even though the vision distance has been cranked up to almost across the map, you still can't see enemies from very far away. It still loads at the default distance that it is in the normal game. This is particularly annoying if you do happen to choose the sniper class. You can upgrade one of the scopes, which we'll get to in a little bit, but the upgraded scope has an insane zoom distance, and you just want to get to the top of a tower or building and just start picking off zombies from across the map, but you're only able to see them from pretty close up compared to how far you can see the actual ground or trees or other environmental objects. Environmental factors aren't the only ones that have gotten a facelift as well. From genetically modified baddies to the everyday bandit or stalker, everybody's gotten a little bit of love this time around. Some of the mutants got entirely new skins, and others have just been given new high-res textures, but they're still quite an improvement on the original. There's also little subtle things added in there that just contribute to the overall graphical upgrade that the mod does to the original game, such as blood splatter has been improved and some of the unique characters have been given little touch-ups like extra facial hair or gloves, and there's actually been customized clothes for different factions and unique characters within the game. They don't have all the same clothing all the time, which is very nice. It's the little things in games that slowly drag you into the experience and make it more believable, and it's also the little things that'll knock you out very quickly. For instance, if you walked into an entire group of guys, and even if it made sense in the game, they all had the exact same thing on, it just looks strange. Having them slightly different in little ways really makes the game that more immersive. And now to my favorite part of the Misery overhaul. Oh yes indeed, guns. There has been a drastic improvement in how guns feel and look from the original game. You can see they've been touched up quite a bit on the graphical side, making them much more believable. And also, they have added a ton of guns into the game. It's claimed there has been more than 40 upgradable, all unique weapons added to the game, which after playing through it several times is a pretty believable statement. As opposed to the vanilla version, where you would quite often run into the exact same guns over and over and over, which still happens in this one quite a bit. You still find your AK-74Us laying about, but it's not that difficult to, even when you start out in the game, find unique and hidden weapons just stashed around for you. These added weapons are really awesome for the game. I love being able to find new and unique weapons around all the time. Even at the tail end of, I believe, an 80-hour playthrough, I was still finding unique weapons that I'd never found before or even newer in the game. But don't get too excited. Some of the skins and animations are a little off. Some of the iron sights are off, the graphics and animations are strange, but I still really appreciate the effort of adding that many weapons in the game, fully animating them, their own sound design, the whole 9 yards. Just the impression of firing a weapon in the mod as opposed to the weapon in the vanilla version, identical weapons, is extremely telling. Watch this little bit of clips I've spliced together for you. The guns used in these clips are the same weapons in the mod as they are in the vanilla version, the over and under shotgun and a type of AK. They've also been recorded at nearly the same volume and haven't been edited in any way. If at any time during this section you want to skip past it and just continue on with the commentary, there will be a biohazard symbol that you can click right there, and it will skip this part and you can continue on with the video. And there you have it. That's probably one of the biggest things for me personally in this mod that I like. You can tell in the AK firing, it almost even sounded like a BB gun. Very little recoil, just pit, 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 and then when the Misery mod version fired, it was a blam, blam. It really felt like it was firing. It's basically that much of a difference for almost all the guns in the game. In the Misery version, they're all upgraded, all sound very well. Even the reload animations have some different sounds in different cases, and they're just all a very large step up from the original game. Really, how much effort was put into the audio design cannot be overstated. The guns sound terrific, and I love how much they've been stepped up. Even trying going back to the old gun sounds in the vanilla version is just painful. They're so bad compared to what Misery has done. Hats off to the developer in this regard. What they've pulled off is incredible here. But it's not just sound design where the guns have been stepped up. Also, you can see in the side-by-side the graphical comparison of how they've been upgraded. Although in the original version they still do look damaged, rustic, destroyed, like they've been out in the zone for a long time, the developer is just taking it up to the next level in this regard. And this also just isn't a graphical or aesthetic effect as well. It actually has an influence on the gameplay. Weapons that are old or historic that you pick up and use in the zone often damage faster, but they're cheaper to repair, while modern military weapons that you would see in any army today are more expensive to maintain, use, and take care of, but at the same time, they degrade slower than the historic weapons do. Which, if you think about it, is actually a pretty awesome feature. It's not only do you decide to use a shotgun or a sniper rifle or an assault rifle, do you decide to use a new one, which might be more expensive to take care of and find ammo for, but at the same time it's going to be more reliable and degrade slower, or do you choose the cheap, crappy one that's everywhere, but it'll get destroyed extremely quickly? This is one of those things that you might even play through the entire game not even knowing happens, but it's just these little tiny things that slowly draw you in and make the world believable. And it's just not the graphical implementation that's been changed with guns and Misery mod, there's also been the actual usage that's been refined. Guns have more recoil, more attachments you can put on them, and more upgrades that you can make them your own. Silencers have been overhauled and have their own unique look depending on the gun, and they have their own sound design depending on the caliber. Additionally, there's been little tweak things like rate of fire and damage has been changed slightly depending on the caliber, so it has more fidelity to the real world weapon. Combat is crazy visceral in the mod. Damage has been highly increased, and if you do get pegged really well, your camera is going to be shocked back up into the sky and your character will stagger around trying to find their way and recover what they're doing. Oftentimes this will lead to you actually dropping your gun and looking around in a frenzy trying to pick it up and return fire. This, in combination with bullet snaps, which have been done better than I've ever seen before. Hearing them whiz past your head or snap off a rock next to you on the ground is really atmospheric and makes the projectiles seem real. And if you've been paying any attention at all, you've probably noticed that in the background, depending on the helmet that you have in the game, it changes actually how it limits your field of view. If your helmet gets more damage, then it'll crack up a bunch, and if it gets extremely damaged and you have night vision on your suit, then it will flick on and off sporadically until you get it repaired. Something else that's real, unfortunately, is your carrying capacity. I only say unfortunately because it's a little bit annoying if you're not used to dropping everything that you don't need. Depending on the class you select, you'll probably need to only keep the necessities with you, even more so than the original game. Being able to carry very little in combination with there being almost no supplies in the game can make some pretty worrisome and intense moments. Misery is a stark contrast to the original game, where there were fields and fields of medkits and you could carry 30 at a time. No worries in the world, you rarely ever find medkits and you rarely ever find food. Pill packs that will give you momentary protection from environmental effects are just as scarce. The days of stumbling upon a stash of an assault rifle with a pristine condition, full of ammo, health, and medkits is long gone. You'll be lucky to find a stash in most cases, and sometimes it's just meager supplies, maybe a medkit, maybe just an anti-radiation thing, and sometimes just a single bandage. You really have to conserve your supplies in this game. If you run out, you're going to be in big trouble, which adds to the intensity of the immersion factor incredibly. It's wild trying to balance your sleep, food, chemicals, and being killed all together. And yes, in this mod you actually do need to sleep. Your character will get tired over time, start to yawn and shake his head back and forth. This, in combination with barely trying to stay alive with expensive and rare food, ammo, and supplies, as well as everything out there trying to kill you, really adds to the intensity of the game. You really have to watch yourself in this mod. It's not screwing around. You can get into some situations where it's actually impossible to get out, and you have to go back to where you were before. You really have to be calm, calculated in your decisions and what you do. Running around wildly trying to be Rambo will get you killed. Even the AI has been bumped up, and you need to be careful around them and not trust anyone. There's only a few minor beefs I have with the mod. Zombies are actually now the hardest enemy in the game, which can be solely attributed to they can only die from a headshot. Shooting them anywhere else, no matter how many times, will not kill them. NPC interaction and fighting in the world has been bumped up a little bit, so it's not uncommon to see a couple zombies walking around and then an entire army of other enemies strewn about before them, such as the hardest ones in the game, like a chimera being killed by a single zombie because it's lurching at the guy, trying to kill him, but it can't hit his head, so he's just shooting them with a single pistol and kills it because it can't hit it in the head. This is pretty obnoxious, but also adds to the scary level of zombies as opposed to just being pushovers before. Now they're actually a threat, but it seems like they're too much of a threat for what they are in the game. I am happy to report though that the modder has taken this into consideration, and in the second version of Misery, version 2.0, you will be able to kill zombies with a heart shot, a spine shot, or a headshot, as opposed to just a headshot before. Additionally, there's been things implemented in the game that, once again, aren't explained to you properly. For 90% of my time playing in Misery, I thought the flashlight was incredibly bugged. It kept only showing the radiant light, and the actual light it was supposed to illuminate in the area wasn't working properly. Occasionally it would work, occasionally other times it wouldn't. I thought it had to do with menus and overlays and things like that, but it actually turns out you need to replace the batteries in your flashlight and your night vision devices for them to work properly. Unless you actually read the prompts for all of the items in game and find the one vendor that has them and happen to read it, you're never going to figure this out. Once again, the logic of doing this escapes me. It's awesome in games to figure out things on your own, but at the same time, thinking they're a bug for the entire game isn't good, and I'm not sure it's worth taking that risk in your game at the expense of a player maybe might figure out sometime in the game that they're supposed to do something. There's other small things in the mod where character bodies don't load properly. They're important to quests, and it's almost impossible to proceed in some situations. Additionally, there's the class things and stuff like that, but I can't really list that fairly as a negative because as a mod, it's only working with what the game already has in it. I don't really feel it's that fair to criticize the mod based on the framework that the game has in place. But Misery redeems itself in these ways that it does so many things right that the game should have done, as opposed to things it missed or did incorrectly. The mod is 100% free. I'd really encourage anybody who enjoys Stalker to go check it out. I don't know if I'll ever be able to go back to vanilla version of Stalker after this. The atmosphere, guns, and impending doom of survival really are the way this game should be played. And soon, on the horizon, there will be Misery 2.0, which I'm extremely excited about. Some of the features that have been announced that will be included in the next iteration are getting meat and cooking it off of mutants, having modular armor, you can actually change the types and what you want on it, and having a backpack that you can drop, reducing your weight drastically in an emergency situation so you can run off, and many, many more ammo types for us to enjoy. The mod is actually on the horizon and not that far away it looks like now. I'll do a looking at when it comes out and I have the sufficient time to play through the entire thing and give you my thoughts on it. And once it does come out, there will be a link here that will take you directly to that video. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate your like or favorite. You don't have to, but if you enjoyed the video, I really appreciate it and it helps me out a bunch. If you didn't enjoy the video or have some constructive criticism, I'd appreciate a comment letting me know why or what I can do better. If you're interested to see more videos and what's on the horizon for this channel, make sure to subscribe for all the latest updates as well as when I go live on Twitch TV. Thanks for watching and take it easy.